Welcome back, you guys, and I finally caught on to the trend. Today's topic of the day is surgical masks. See, I'm not sure why people are wearing this, but I decided to hop on the trend while I'm at it. I don't want to be that one guy who still plays Mario Kart 7. In other news, it's finally 2021, another year for me to not play Mario Kart 7. But you see, last year's gaming was a little different, mostly because of, that. So while we were all stuck inside, we had no other way to connect but through gaming, which was really the magic of it. The only other form of magic I can see is how people play Mario Kart 7. My god, I hate that game! The entire style of 2020 gaming was completely different from what we've usually seen, and it may have a lasting impact on what we may see in the future for 2021, 2022, and whatever other crap years come after that. 2014 was the last good year. We're only going downhill, guys. So here we have the quarantine calendar. Let me just change that and remove those two. There we go. Quarantine calendar. We're going to use this here calendar to look through this year's major events in gaming, milestones, game releases, and anything else that could have come up this year that was monumental to gaming. What sets apart this year from most years in gaming is that the majority of monumental events this year were not game releases. I mean, come on, look at this. This wouldn't even satisfy your 6th grade reading list. We're not just going to be looking at dates though, we're going to be looking at changes that occurred gradually but had a lasting impact on gaming for months and during the entire year. So welcome everyone to Reading a Calendar with Jaysic. Yeah, I make content. So without any more lollygagging, let's look through March 2020, Hell Month. But Jaysic, you may ask, how can the same month that has St. Patrick's Day be Hell Month? Honestly, I have no clue. Most people remember it as this: spring break started, and it never ended. I vividly remember that day that they said they were going to be canceling classes for a week. A week. So now what? So the entire human race had a bit of extra time on their hands, so I spent it doing this and this. I'm not even going to pretend I spent a single second thinking about school. For the majority, the first week of quarantining was spent thinking that it would be over soon. After 2 or 3 weeks, we'd all be back in school or back to work. Meanwhile, most students were having blowouts. When it comes to video games, we only saw 2 really huge releases, those being Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal, both on the same day. God, it was hell. Animal Crossing unintentionally released at the perfect time. It's a game that's meant to play through a long span of time, and you're supposed to keep coming back to it. Since the majority of people had nothing but time, it was perfect for Animal Crossing. One of the things to note is that most March releases got lucky. By the time quarantine started, those games were already up and ready to go. However, March was the time that we saw a lot of important events cancelled. E3 was immediately cancelled at the beginning of quarantine because they knew this was going to be lasting a bit longer than a week. This had a huge impact on developing companies. Most developing companies such as Bethesda, Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, you name it. They already had their presentations ready for E3, jam-packed with huge announcements. Now that they had no E3, developing companies were forced to make their own presentations to make their announcements, which statistically don't do as well. This also meant no game demos, which was huge for small games that had spotlights at E3 because people got to try them out and got interested. Because there's no game demos, there's no way for those small games to gain traction and attention. And as you can probably guess, people were upset. If you watch this channel, I hope you were upset. There was one shot of remediation. Geoff Keighley, the guy behind the Game Awards, announced that he's running the Summer Game Fest, a sort of replacement for E3 that spanned through the entirety of summer. Basically, game companies could host presentations on the Summer Game Fest to gain traction as they did in E3. However, these were all virtual and there were still no game demos, so it completely paled in comparison to E3. Plus, because it was so spread out, it gained little to no traction over time. Hell Month is over, ladies and gentlemen. Now it's time to go to Hell Month Part 2, April. The biggest problem with this month is, dear God, was it boring. The only major game release this month was Resident Evil 3 in early April. Other than that, the only other game I can think of is Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4 Road to Boruto. Now that's a video game. When it comes to events this month, we didn't really see much. Events that were delayed back in March were delayed further or even cancelled. One cool thing worth mentioning is that Epic Games continued their program where they released one free game a week. This was exceptionally popular during the times of quarantine as we were kinda bored in game library sense, and a new game every week wasn't anything to complain about. During the majority of this month, Animal Crossing remained on top when it comes to popularity of games. We did see a lot of fun multiplayer games sprout up in popularity, such as Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, and Minecraft. One game that sprouted up that was new was a game called Valorant. This game was in early beta and it was still testing. However, most people that tested the game enjoyed it. It was a free-to-play game, which was also an incredibly high selling point. But fear not everyone, because here comes our Lord and Savior, Cyberpunk 2077, a first-person simulation-based game that has the same style of GTA. And even better, this game is releasing this month. No, it isn't. Can you believe it's already been 2 months of quarantine? Get me the fuck out of here! When it comes to game releases, we also saw another drought this month. The only major releases I can think of are Mortal Kombat 11, Aftermath, Minecraft Dungeons, and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. Now you may be saying to yourself, but I didn't play any of those games. Exactly. We did see a spike in news though. Gaming companies started to get back on their stride and continued pumping out news as normal. It was said that Sony was cooking something up, which had any Twitter user with a keyboard making some kind of rumor. It also came out that Rockstar was going to continue making updates for GTA 5, contrary to the popular belief that they were done to go work on other games, which meant that GTA 6, while in development, wasn't going to be coming out anytime soon. It had a lot of people upset, but we could wait a bit. Events were also pretty minimal too. Esports tournaments were moving to online, but at this time they weren't ready to have full-blown tournaments, so we needed to wait a little bit longer for esports tournaments. And for actual presentations and demos, the same thing was true. Most companies were still trying to get back on track from the amount of time they lost continuing game development that they had previously lost time on earlier. It's June, guys, that's right, we went through an entire season of quarantine, and how are we doing? We'll check back on him later. June 2020 started off with a bang, with the presentation for the PlayStation 5 coming in early June. This presentation had amazing reveals for games, hardware, and the design for the console. I could finally have good internet. So the design aside, I was really excited for the PlayStation 5. All the exclusives looked amazing, and I was really excited to try and get my hands on one. It's not possible! Game releases were still minimal this month, but we saw a bit more than we did last month. Battle for Bikini Bottom, Pokemon DLC, Ninjala, Bard's Tale. These were all small releases, but proof that we were slowly getting back to the time where game releases were as frequent as they was before. We did see an incredibly popular game pop up this month. That game was Valorant. Valorant combines concepts of both Call of Duty and Overwatch. I myself don't play the game as it's not my style of games. However, it's very popular among streamers. During most of July, we saw old games that were previously forgotten or less popular start to come back to spotlight. Now, not all of these games were hugely popular and played by everyone. However, these games were played by a decent chunk of people that saw increased playtimes of this game than previously before. It's also worth noting this is mostly because a lot of those games ended up going on sale or just became popular due to content creators playing these games. Our society is divided into two groups, people who say, I f***ing hate pixels, to I f***ing love pixels. One of those old games that came back to light was Minecraft, and this was mostly due to a certain YouTuber who calls his fans kittens. This is Dream. It's a f***ing stick figure! The reason Dream became so popular was because of his series, Minecraft Manhunt, where he would try to speedrun the entirety of Minecraft with multiple people chasing him and trying to kill him. The main reason people got addicted to the series was because Dream was so skilled at Minecraft. Dream eventually started up a Minecraft server called the Dream SMP with his own friends and other celebrities. Apparently there's lore in the Minecraft server, which makes no sense because you don't die in Minecraft. If you understand any part of the Dream SMP server, get out. Another game that rose to popularity in July was Terraria, that saw its peak play times during July. This is mostly because of a large update that came to the game that attracted many new players as well as old players. So, quick announcement before we continue on with the video, I have two things coming to the channel I think that you guys will be very excited about. The first thing that's coming up is my podcast, Into the Clouds. This will be uploaded constantly to this channel, and it's going to feature me and my friends talking about more recent gaming news, such as announcements, estimates, maybe players. It could really be anything that's current and not a lot less of specific games or old games. Just news in general. Second off, we have something else I'm going to be doing called Jaysic Live. This is going to be a live stream I do every once in a while where I go and play games I reviewed on the channel. One example is Sonic Mania. That game I very much enjoyed and the video did pretty well. Because of this, I'm going to go ahead and stream that game, and you guys are going to be able to watch me give a gameplay reaction and review. So you can review certain elements, levels, concepts, you really name it. And we can point out little Easter eggs too, because when it comes to Sonic Mania, I know everything about Sonic Mania. Both of these things are going to be coming pretty soon, and I have both of them set up, so I'm really excited for them and I hope you guys enjoy them. Now back to the video. It's now August, everyone, the end of summer, which means the end of us being able to play video games. I'm kidding, it's e-school, we can play video games all we want, the teachers will not notice. This is about the time that we saw gaming start to come back and become normal, as far as normal goes. We saw a lot of huge game releases, and they're much more frequent as well. Samurai Jack, Madden, PGA Tour, Wasteland, these series all saw a new entry to their series this month. When it comes to new releases, we saw some pretty big new releases. Microsoft Flight Simulator, a flight simulator. Honestly, I'm surprised this is considered a game. It's like calling Google Earth a game. But Microsoft Flight Simulator was not the top release this month. The top release was Fall Guys. Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is a last man standing race to the finish. In this game, you are paired with 60 other players online, and you cycle through minigames. With each minigame, only a certain number of players that finish first can go to the next round. And at the final round, you have to be the first person to reach the crown to win. People played this game so much it was insane. Content creators, influencers, Twitch streamers, everyone was playing this game. The developer response to this game was like the developer response to any other popular game. Bullshit. Yeah, the developers of this game definitely milked their success a bit too much. It was very visible in their Twitter, and whatever Big Yeetus is. But still, Fall Guys was the game. For about 3 weeks. After those 3 weeks were up, another game took the spotlight, and that game continues to take the spotlight today. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, take a look at this. Yeah, this game had an impact. It was a very popular game considering we were all stuck in quarantine at home without contact with our friends. This game made it perfect for us to meet people online as well as talk to people we already know. But don't get me wrong, Among Us is a great game. It wasn't made during quarantine, it was actually made 2 years ago, but it's sprouted up in popularity now, which really shows how a game can get progressively more popular over time. The gameplay itself is fun, and I will always thank Innersoft for giving us this beautiful hunk of stick. This is a pattern I see in a lot of popular games. Their community sucks ass. The community for this game makes it so hard to enjoy this game, mostly because of all the slang and all the memes and everything. Someone removed 7 letters from a word meaning skeptical and it became a meme. The game is still popular, with content creators still milking the shit out of it on Twitch and YouTube. However, that doesn't mean that's going to be staying around for much longer. My bet's that as soon as quarantine ends, this game's going to go back in the dust because people are going to be able to see each other and play in-person party games. Poker night, baby! Let's go! Poker night! During September, the trends of video games stayed about the same as in August. Because we saw no major social game releases, the only multiplayer games we had to play were Among Us and Fall Guys. So the majority stuck to Among Us, and the 5 people who still played Fall Guys played Fall Guys. While this trend may be considered disappointing to some, I pretty much expected it. There weren't any major social game releases coming out, and we were all sick and tired of quarantine, so at this time we were all playing the games that we could play together. September, however, we did see a few new games come up. WRC 9, Marvel's Avengers, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2, Destiny 2. These games all sprouted up during September. However, when it comes to smaller games, we didn't actually see too many, strangely. It's really weird because usually you'll see like a few bullshit anime games or weird party games that come on the Nintendo Switch and nothing else, or weird PC exclusives releasing. We didn't see too many of these during September, mostly because Among Us still held the popular throne. I mean, you'd have to release AAA games to even have somewhat of a competition against Among Us. My bet is most of these small games waited a bit to see when Among Us would die out, so that their game would have a higher chance of getting into the spotlight. Of course, that's just my theory. It's either that or we just didn't have any bullshit games during September, which woohoo, no bullshit. The most notable of the 4 game releases I mentioned was Avengers. This game was entirely overhyped, however, the game really flopped on release. To this day, they're still trying to make back the money they spent making the game. It's such a disappointment to see games like that spend so much time and so much effort making the game, just flop so easily. At the same time, I can't feel bad for them because, well, they spent all that money making a bad game. There was also NBA 2K21, which I don't really talk about sports games on this channel and I don't aim to, but apparently it was a good game, so it's worth mentioning. And we can't forget, after being delayed how many months now? Cyberpunk is finally out. No, it isn't. I'll give you 3 guesses as to what game was most popular this month. Go, it's Among Us. We saw some pretty big game releases this month as well. Crash Bandicoot 4, Star Wars Squadrons, FIFA 21, Watch Dogs Legion. These were all pretty good games, and it really showed that during this month, gaming was starting to come back. But look who's back from their grave, Nintendo's back. This month we saw Mario's 35th anniversary and the announcement of Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Many people were a bit upset that this is all we saw from Nintendo for a while. Even now, Nintendo's still a bit inactive on the game release side. However, I can excuse it. Nintendo had a hard time with quarantine, so are we. Come on guys, give Nintendo a break. Actually, don't. Nintendo. This was also a huge month for consoles. In November, the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S would be releasing, so this month was all about the hype building, with new game announcements, hardware releases. These were all monumental things for the console's successes, and we'll see how they did in November. Well, it's November now, so we're reaching the end of the year, so now it's a pretty good time to reflect. We can look on what stayed the same for most of the year, what changed during the year. What adjustments have we had to make during the year? By this time, most of gaming had already adapted and evolved over what quarantine had to offer. Consoles were being released, games were being released. Everything was coming back slowly but surely. We weren't seeing any more delays or halts, we were just seeing games being pumped out as they usually would. Delayed games were finally coming out, delayed consoles were finally coming out, announcements were back to their normal speed. And really everything had kind of come to a close when it comes to quarantine's negative effects. We had to adapt a bit as consumers and gamers. Some games would be a bit delayed, that's fine. Some games wouldn't be as great as they were promised, that's fine. Unlike Cyberpunk, because Cyberpunk is going to be amazing when it comes out November 17th. Developing companies had to adapt to having their workers at home. This meant that they'd have to keep up their efficiency while their environment was different. But hey, it's only November, we still have 2 whole months of games to go, so let's go into it. I'm going to start with early November for the sake of my sanity. In early November, we saw a monumental increase in game releases. The most notable ones being Yakuza Like a Dragon and Assassin's Creed Valhalla. From Nintendo's side, the only major game release I can think of was Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. And now for the launch titles that came with the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, Lord help me. Okay. Here we go.
Demon Souls bugs net Spiderman Sackboy Gog 4 Overcooked Astros Perun Destruction Or Stars Dirt 5 Pathless Cog Devil May Cry 5 Observer Destiny 2 No Lands Sky Borderlands 3. Now for Xbox. Watch Dogs Tetris Effect Cog again and it did not hate Cyberpunk Nevermind Evergate where it knows that it that said Xbox sucks go cray.
Do you see what I mean by there being a lot? The majority of gaming news around this time was based off the Xbox and PlayStation 5, so I'll save you the details. People liked the PlayStation. People vaped on the Xbox. When it comes to esports, a lot of events started spreading up again this month. We saw a lot of socially distanced or online events start taking place, and it was great to see that esports was coming back slowly but surely. It didn't help that Nintendo was just canceling them all though. Ah yes, December, the holidays, most perfect time of year for complaining about video games. December was about the time that we saw things get back into full swing. Companies were back at it, consoles were back at it, Nintendo was not so back at it. And guess what's finally here? Cyberpunk! Wait, is it actually here? Well, that's surprising. After God knows how long of delay, Cyberpunk is finally here, and delays only make a game better. So let's go see how the game's doing. Oh. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, one of the biggest grievances of this game were the bugs. It was completely unplayable some parts of the game. The storyline was okay, but the bugs just make it so that your experience is significantly tainted. It's hard to enjoy the game. Well, at least it's hard to enjoy the gameplay of the game that I'm watching. Do I look like I'm rich? I'll have to try it out for myself, definitely, but from what I can see, they're offering full refunds on the game on most consoles and removing it from some shops entirely. I don't think I'll be giving it a full try anytime soon, simply because I want to spare myself from hell. It's strange how we started off the year with all the gaming companies in full swing, went through the year with most gaming companies dead, and ended the year with companies in full swing again. We really came full circle, didn't we? I would even argue to say that 2020 taught us the importance of gaming, and how it can really bring people together. And that was 2020. What the f***? Yeah, someone wasn't happy with us and gave us whatever that was. It's 2021 now, that means things are gonna be better, right? Right? It was fun looking back at 2020 and seeing how gaming really evolved during that time. And I can't wait to see how those effects play out as we transition back to a normal society, well, as far as normal goes. So what did we learn today? Nothing. Alright, that's a cut.